I chain smoke and I say fuck a lot. But I accept myself for the way I am. I accept you too. Viewer discretion advised. What's the difference between Freddie Mercury and Magic Johnson? They both tested positive for HIV. Depending on who you ask, I've heard that Freddie Mercury tested positive in 1987, but I've also heard that he tested positive in 1990. And Magic announced he had tested positive on November 7, 1991. 2.5 weeks after Magic's announcement, Mercury died on November 24, 1991. Why were their experiences so different? Freddie Mercury only made it 1 to 3 years, depending on who you ask. And Magic Johnson's still alive today, 30 years later. Do you think it could have been the medication?
Queen said tonight they were planning a big musical event dedicated to their lead singer, Freddie Mercury, who died last night of AIDS. There have been tributes to his talent and his courage from friends and from fans. The Health Minister, Mrs. Virginia Bottomley, predicted his death would have a big impact in preventing the spread of AIDS.
All on AZT. The deaths of Freddie Mercury, Rudolph Nureyev, and Arthur Ashe. Even celebrities fall for their theory that antiretroviral substances, like AZT, are the only hope in the battle against AIDS. Take, for example, Freddie Mercury, former frontman of British rock band Queen, who was bisexual and had himself tested during the general AIDS panic at the end of 1980s. The result? Positive. Mercury was terrified and took his doctor's advice to begin taking AZT. Mercury belonged to the first generation of patients who received the full AZT load, 1,500 milligrams a day. At the end, he looked like a bone rack, and he died in London on the 24th of November, 1991, at the age of 45.
By the time Innuendo was released in 1991, it was impossible to disguise that Freddie was seriously ill. Despite his frail appearance, the band continued to make videos in support of the album.
We made a whole album, Innuendo, knowing that this was happening. If you listen to it now, it's made with the knowledge that we don't have much longer. And Freddie doesn't have much longer on the planet.
Those were the days of our lives.
Freddie Mercury also had Kaposi sarcoma, which could indicate heavy use of amyl nitrates, aka poppers. While I can't confirm this, from Adventures in Psychonautics, Sunday, June 30, 2019, Freddie Mercury, the man, the myth, and the 3 letters that silenced a legend, goes on to say he frequented gay bathhouses and bars like Heaven and St. Mark's, but his favorite was the Saint in New York City. There, he could rent a locker to change into fetish gear and store drugs like cocaine, MDA, Placidil, Quaaludes, Black Beauties, and Seconal, all the exotic and now obsolete drugs of the day. Poppers were always on tap too, but Fred's favorite was ecstasy, which sold for a mere $10 a pill. He also used ethyl chloride, which was soaked into a rag and bitten down on for its relaxing effects. So one could assume that he was using poppers. But would Kaposi sarcoma kill him? It could. Kaposi sarcomas are usually not life-threatening or disabling, but the condition may become life-threatening when the cancer spreads to the lungs. So it could have killed him, but maybe not. And maybe he could have lived longer too. But the one thing is, he was taking AZT.
He'd known for 2 years that he had AIDS, but had kept it quiet, living the life of a recluse in his £5 million mansion in West London, where fans have been paying their tributes. He only admitted publicly that he had AIDS the day before he died, when he also appealed to his fans to help combat the disease.
I do think that the death of somebody who's been so admired and has been such a hero in some respects does have a very profound impact. Last week we had the death of Tony Richardson, the announcement from Magic Johnson, and I believe that that does reach out and communicate perhaps with youngsters who may not otherwise have really thought through how serious this is.
I will now become a spokesman for the HIV virus.
The announcement by basketball star Magic Johnson that he was retiring from the game because he was HIV positive won him universal praise. Because he spoke out to help others, he was also heterosexual.
Magic Johnson. There is no magic in AZT, and no AZT in magic. What American tennis legend Ash didn't have the heart to do, resist the pressure of prevailing AIDS medicine and decide against taking AZT, apparently saved the life of basketball megastar Earvin Magic Johnson. At the end of 1991, Magic shocked the world with the news he had tested HIV positive. It can happen to anybody, even Magic Johnson, said Time magazine on the 18th of November, 1991. A few days later, Time wrote that the basketball player had put the risk of heterosexual transmission squarely in centre court. But what was the basis of this assumption? Nothing at all, for the American magazine, just like the rest of the media world, simply referred to Johnson's mere conjecture that he had picked up the AIDS virus heterosexually, that is to say, through sex with a woman. Evidence to support the statement is not available. Magic Johnson had tested positive, but at the same time,
Magic was totally healthy until AIDS specialist Anthony Fauci from the NIH, David Ho, now director of the Aaron Diamond AIDS Research Center in New York, and Magic's personal doctor advised AIDS prophylaxis with AZT.
Johnson followed their advice, but Magic's health rapidly deteriorated, so much in fact that he felt like vomiting almost every day.
The press wrote in December 1991, Magic reeling as worst nightmare comes true. He's getting sicker. Only after he began taking AZT did Magic's health begin to decline. He had lost his appetite and suffered from bouts of nausea and fatigue and complained, "I feel like vomiting almost every day."
But virus mania was by then so dominant that nobody thought that the extremely toxic medications could have caused Magic's serious health problems. There was not a lot of time to think about it anyway, as Johnson's symptoms suddenly disappeared after a short time.
And so did all further news about his AIDS symptoms and treatment.
In the summer of 1992, after the media announced his retirement from basketball in late 1991, he even led the US basketball team to the gold medal at the Olympic Games in Barcelona.
Indeed, it is very unlikely that he could have won the Olympics in 1992 on AZT, considering his strong reactions to the toxic drug in 1991. The silence of the AIDS establishment seems to confirm this assumption. Nothing would have been a better advertisement for the troubled AIDS drug than having returned AIDS patient Magic to an Olympic victory. But no such announcement was made.
One assumes then that Magic only took AZT for a very short time. When he discontinued the medication, with the deadly side effects, his complaints likewise disappeared. Indeed, years later, in 1995, he admitted in a personal conversation in Florida that he had only taken AZT for a very short time.
Magic responded to a teacher that he had been taking AZT for a while, but has stopped. The media preferred not to mention the news.
And so came the saying, "There is no magic in AZT, and no AZT in magic."
From Sports Illustrated Vault, August 17, 1992. I'm still strong. After a thrilling comeback in Barcelona, Magic Johnson talked hearteningly of his future with Sports Illustrated's Jack McCollum. Sports Illustrated. Your fight against the virus essentially consists of daily doses of AZT, healthy diet. Magic Johnson. I take my medication. I watch my diet, which has not been quite as easy over here as it is at home. I rest. I work out. Sports Illustrated. I know you always say, quote, medication rather than, quote, AZT. Why is that? Magic Johnson. Everybody knows about the AZT, but I don't like to get specific about it because then, with some people, I get bogged down in talking about the way I'm fighting off AIDS. See, everybody's got a cure. Magic Johnson also stepped down from the National Commission on AIDS after one meeting.
I am very much concerned about AIDS, and I believe that we've got the best researchers in the world out there at NIH working the problem. We're funding them. I wish there was more money, but we're funding them far more than any time in the past, and we're going to keep on doing that. I don't know, I was a little disappointed in Magic because he came to me and I said, now if you see something we're not doing, get a hold of me, call me, let me know. He went to one meeting, and then we heard that he was stepping down, so he's been replaced by Mary Fisher.
For several years, GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, used Magic Johnson to spread its miracle cure messages, especially among urban blacks. The basketball star's image is splashed on billboards, subway posters, and full-page ads in newspapers and magazines. The ads picture a robust-looking Johnson and feature messages such as, "Staying healthy is about a few basic things. A positive attitude, partnering with my doctor, taking my medicine every day." Those ads are now gone because Johnson got a better offer from Abbott and is now promoting another combination AIDS drug, Kaletra. However, this does not necessarily mean that Johnson himself is taking these highly toxic drugs. As outlined, the opposite is obviously true. Magic is the poster boy for HIV-positive heterosexuals, and he's a spokesman for a drug manufacturer, so he has a financial conflict of interest that may disallow him from revealing if he is taking GSK's Combivir or Abbott's Kaletra, and if so, how much drug he's really taking. Johnson has not directly confirmed that he is taking the drugs he pushes, says AIDS drugs researcher David Rasnick. In October 2004, we approached the Magic Johnson Foundation to ask if the basketball player has taken any AIDS medications since the Olympic triumph in 1992, and if so, for how long. But as of today, we have not received a response.
From Pause Magazine, June 1, 1996. Do you believe in magic? Magic Johnson doesn't want to talk about AIDS, yet he has changed forever the way America sees people with HIV. Dr. Melman, who still treats Johnson, won't discuss his treatment. Neither will Johnson. We do know that he had previously taken AZT and that he doesn't anymore. I asked him why he stopped and which therapies he may currently take. His cryptic response, quote, "The medication that I take is a decision that my doctors and I make."
Well, the reason that only one drug has been made available, AZT, because it's the only drug that thus far has been shown in scientifically controlled trials to be safe and effective. It isn't a question of there are a lot of drugs around and only one is being released. That's the only one that has been shown to be effective.
As many scientists have been saying for decades, did they lie about HIV? And if so, what does that mean?
The California Monthly, the UC Berkeley alumni magazine, confronted Nobel laureate Kary Mullis in an interview using a statement from another Nobelist, David Baltimore. "Dear Mr. Mullis, you mentioned Baltimore a moment ago. In a recent issue of Nature, he said, there is no question at all that HIV is the cause of AIDS. Anyone who gets up publicly and says the opposite is encouraging people to risk their lives." Whereupon Mullis replied, "I'm not a lifeguard, I'm a scientist, and I get up and say exactly what I think. I'm not going to change the facts around because I believe in something and feel like manipulating somebody's behavior by stretching what I really know. I think it's always the right thing and the safe thing for a scientist to speak one's mind from the facts. If you can't figure out why you believe something, then you'd better make it clear that you're speaking as a religious person. People keep asking me, you mean you don't believe that HIV causes AIDS? And I say, whether I believe it or not is irrelevant. I have no scientific evidence for it. I might believe in God and he could have told me in a dream that HIV causes AIDS, but I wouldn't stand up in front of scientists and say, I believe HIV causes AIDS because God told me. I'd say, I have papers here in hand and experiments that have been done that can be demonstrated to others. It's not what somebody believes, it's experimental proof that counts. And those guys from AIDS orthodoxy don't have that. Antibody tests, PCR, CD4 counts, as uninformative as a toss of a coin.
What can I tell you? You know, it exists.
Gallo said he had all these viruses, and it was a lie.
I think HIV totally has turned out not to be the cause of AIDS. HIV has turned out not to be.
Gelderblum's images, said to come from isolated HIV cultures, provided no proof for HIV's existence. So I asked Nobel laureate Dr. David Baltimore and Dr. Robin Weiss how they would isolate and photograph this elusive virus.
Well, didn't Dr. Gallo do that? I mean, he actually isolated it, so... Yeah. I mean, why should I do all of this? This is all textbook stuff you're asking me.
I'm not quite sure what's behind your question about isolation.
I don't want to be your textbook, you know? Okay. I got other things to do.
They're embarrassed. The scientists have been embarrassed about this. They know that it's flawed.
Fucking stoned.
I got